Richard Jefferson made some comments yesterday about leadership and like if you're really drafting someone that high, you want them to be a leader. I think Richard Jefferson has kind of the same questions about Darryn Peterson as you. I've been told, you would not select him number one, and you would not maybe you put an undraftable.
I wouldn't touch him. Like, I don't want any part of it. Now, there's some point where he keeps dropping, and you're like, all right, I've got to take him. But for my money, from what I've seen out of Cameron Boozer, from what I've seen out of A.J. DeBonza, I'll even go down to Darius Acuff, who's another freshman. Now, he's projected to go much lower, but I don't know if you saw the game that he dropped 49 points against Alabama, and John Calipari said he was on a walking boot 2 days leading into the game, and he went out and played. DeBonza played 40 minutes the entire game the other day. They had a big injury, so he's had to shoulder more of the load, and he's been fine doing it, leading the country in scoring. Boozer's been awesome. He's got NBA bloodlines with his dad. Like, there are several other players. Again, there comes a point where you're like, all right, it's not like I'm not taking him at all, but I think there are several options over Darryn Peterson that I would rather have. And it was interesting because there was a lot of backlash to this photo. And I looked at it like a photo, almost like a piece of artwork, right? It's how you interpret it. And then people were arguing it. Well, he was subbed into the game, which he wasn't. He was actually walking back to the huddle. The guy that took the picture actually says this just timed up perfectly where, he was just walking back to the huddle and they waited for him. But I thought it spoke volumes about sort of the narrative around Darryn Peterson. If you look closely and zoom in on Bill Self, Kansas head coach, he's got his hands on his hips, like looking up the scoreboard, this look of disgust. It's been the hottest topic in college basketball, unfortunately, because I think the kid has taken a ton of criticism. Apparently, he is very quiet and shy, and he just doesn't like to talk a lot, which kind of goes to maybe Richard Jefferson's. I would rather have somebody who's more of an alpha that comes in there that can walk into a locker room with grown men and tell them whatever you need to tell them. You need to stick up for yourself. If you are injured, you can speak for yourself, because I think that's probably contributed a lot to this as well. But I maintain, and now he's starting to play more, but I thought there were two choices of what you could look at. Either he's the softest player we've ever seen because he's missed games for cramps and he's missed games for the sniffles and he's had an ankle sprain, which a lot of guys play through all of those things, or he is just worried about Darryn Peterson and Darryn Peterson's future. Like, he's a selfish player. He's not worried about Kansas basketball. And once you send that message at any level, like, I don't care if it's a high school, if you view yourself as better than the team or you're working towards the next thing, that becomes who you are. Like, you are a selfish player. And I like team sports because you're supposed to put others before yourself. And sometimes you have to play a different role. Sometimes you have to play hurt, even though it might, hurt you personally, but you want to help the team. And this is where I think NBA teams could get fooled. Like, what makes you think all of a sudden when he comes to your organization, your franchise, he's going to magically turn into this guy who's going to put it all on the line for you every single week, and he's going to be happy just because he's making money? He's already making $3 million, like, as a Kansas freshman, so he's getting paid. He's not delivering. What makes you think that's going to change when he gets to the NBA? So for me, there are way too many red flags around Darryn Peterson, and I don't know the answers of why exactly he's missing so much time. But for my money, I would not touch him in the NBA draft.
Look, this may be a bad analogy, but I've seen people's personalities evolve from 18, 19, 20-year-old to 22, 23, 24-year-old. I've seen my own attitude evolve. But I'll give an example of this guy loved to compete. He wasn't Darryn Peterson, but at Ball State, I played with a running back, Bernie Parmalee, that played 10 years in the NFL, running back for the Dolphins for like 9 years. And one of the things we thought about Bernie Parmalee leaving Ball State was like, man, he's got weak ankles. He missed so many practices. he would virtually never practice because of his ankles. And we thought, like, man, if he were going to hit the NFL and be a surefire starter, he could get away with that. But he's going to have to play special teams and blah, blah, blah. He'll never make it in the NFL. And I can remember when he made it in the NFL, and he was Dolphins starting running back for 2 years, and he played there. And he was a tremendous special teams player for the Dolphins in 1 year with the Jets. I remember asking Bernie, like, what changed, man? You would never practice in college. And he goes, yeah, in the NFL, if I didn't practice, I wasn't getting that check, and so I never missed a practice. His whole reputation in the NFL was how available and reliable and how hard-working he was because he had to at the NFL level. Totally different reputation.
But see, that's the big difference. And that's why I referenced Darryn Peterson getting $3 million now. Like, he is a paid professional. And so that's where, yeah, it's going to be more money. But if he's shown you that he's still worried about himself and preserving himself, what if he's in a contract here in the NBA and you're in a playoff race and he's got his points and he's got his stats and maybe he's not 100%? You think he's going to go out there and put it on the line? Like, I think this tells you that he won't. Like, he's showing you who he is. And I think this is a major difference now. When Bernie Parmalee played, he was right. And a lot of guys were saying, I'm getting screwed by the system. You can't say that now as a player. You are a professional athlete who's getting paid to play college basketball, a boatload of money. So the very least, you would think you would go out there and deliver on those, but he's not. And see, here's the thing that even is more revealing, because when Bernie Parmalee was there, he would get cut after 1 year, like if he didn't deliver. Darryn Peterson knows he's not going to get cut. He knows he doesn't even have to come back to Kansas next year. So he's just waiting on the next opportunity. Again, if you're doing that at Kansas, what makes you think that's going to change when you get to the NBA? You are all, and I think this has crept in, we've talked a lot about this, the attitude of me, and I got to get my bag, I got to do everything for me. This is just the latest example of it. And I think it's all over college sports, and I think it's all over professional sports, which damages the overall product as a whole, because you don't see players who just want to be great or play because they love playing basketball or they love playing football. They love the fame and the fortune that comes with it more so. So more times than not, that's what they're going to preserve. And if that means taking games off or not giving 100% or, not taking on your role or sitting out, that's what we're seeing. And it's becoming prevalent all across professional sports.
So let's say you thought, okay, he's an odd duck. He's, maybe he won't compete every game. But the fear is like, maybe he's Kawhi Leonard, that when he does compete, he's so special he can take the Toronto Raptors to a championship. He can win championships with the San Antonio Spurs. What if you thought, well, he'll have stretches like Kawhi did, what do you do then?
That's the risk reward. And that's a risk I wouldn't be willing to take. Now, every player that comes out, the impossible thing to judge is exactly what we're talking about. Like, how hard are you going to play? What are you going to be like as a pro? But even Kawhi has been, kind of polarizing as an NBA player. How much is he going to give you? And I don't want that in my organization. I mean, it's the availability is what I want. Somebody who wants to play the sport. And you know this, like, no one is 100% in any sport at any one time. Like, maybe week one. And even that, you probably had a long camp, so you're probably 80, 90%. The majority of times, you're going to be banged up. You're going to have some nicks and bruises. And I've played with some of those 100% guys, the guys that, you see them laid up. They've got a hammy, a groin, and you can just see it coming from a mile away. They're not going to play if they don't feel 100%. And those guys usually get weeded out and don't last very long. And they're also guys that you can't count on. They're not very dependable. So ultimately, you start hearing the conversations around the locker room. Guys start whispering, here we go again. And that can become, like, I haven't been on very great teams that had guys like that. Like most of the teams that I played on that were playoff caliber teams or championship worthy teams, the core nucleus of the team was made up of guys who were playing hurt, playing banged up, played because they loved competing, wanted to win. you didn't see a lot of selfish me guys. Now, of course, there's some great cultures where you can absorb one or two of those and you can manage it, and the core of leadership can take over that. But more times than not, I think it has a greater chance of dividing a locker room, from within, which is the worst thing you can have as a coach.